everybody. Welcome back. We're here in another segment, and today we're going to be talking about voting. And with us, we have Valeria, and she's going to be sharing with us a lot of resources. But first, let's hear your introduction, Vale.
Hey, what up? Yeah, my name is Valeria, and I am a community or mobilizer at El Centro in Wyandotte.
And
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about El Centro?
Yeah, so we are a nonprofit. We're located on 7th in Minnesota, and our mission is to strengthen the lives of community and of Latinos and other community members through social education and financial opportunities. We've been serving the Latino community for almost 70 years now, and we just are my job there is I do voter education, voter registration, advocacy. You know, I'm sure you're obviously familiar with the work that El Centro does. We do DACA clinics, citizenship clinics. We do know your rights classes. We're going to be doing a first time voters class coming up on Friday, which I'm pretty excited about. We're going to be talking to Latinos. This is their first election. This is the first time they get to vote. So we're going to run them down the hows, whens, wheres, you know, how to look up your ballot, how to know what's going to be on there, how to find out where to vote, all the good stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for that project. But yeah, that's about the general idea of the work I do at El Centro.
Thank you for sharing. And I know I'm definitely a little bit familiarized, but I would like for everybody to know what else is out there and what other resources we can take advantage of. But I know that the main conversation today is going to be voting. So let's get to it. Talk to me about voting. Why should we vote? Why does it matter? How does this intertwine with everything that's going on today?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Come
But
on, we can do it part by part.
yeah, so I mean, if I think for me, at its core, voting is detrimental to our democracy, right? That's supposed to be Voting is the thing that lets everyone have a say in their community and what they want their community to look like and what they want their community to invest in. So it's detrimental, I guess, to society that we all kind of do our part and that we all go out there and vote. Now, if you want to get into the specifics of why as Latinos, I think it's important for us to vote. Um, my first time voting was in 2012, and I remember feeling a I felt a lot of almost pressure. Like I knew because I was going to be the first person in my family to vote. Um, and and I knew that I had to vote with that conscious of like I have to vote for my parents, I have to vote for my community, I have to vote for all the people that I know that they don't get to vote, they don't get a say. They're just as much of a part of this community, um, but they don't get that privilege. So I think it's important for us as a minority to vote because there's just not enough representation for us out there. There's not enough people echoing our stories. There's not enough, people fighting for us, even though and I'm saying that during a time where there's a lot of protesting going on. There's a lot of demand for justice going on, as there should be, but it's still not enough. And the main way that I think we can have a positive change is through the voting system. We have to get up and we have to get registered and we have to show to the polls. That's the only way. So in general, that is why voting is important to me and to I believe El Centro, and why we do the work that we do.
And you even talked about the representation and how, it really does matter. Like our vote does matter. What about like representation? What are your thoughts on representation? I know I'm asking you a few questions before we get to the resources, if you're okay with that.
No, yeah, of course. So, what is representation to me? Is that or why it
Yeah,
matters?
the representation for voting. What does that look like right now? Are we going to the polls? Are we not going to the polls? How are our Latinos out there? Are we
Yeah,
representing?
yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I can speak for the community that I work in, which is Wyandotte, and numbers are not too good in Wyandotte for voting. Voter turnout is very low. And that's why some of the work that El Centro, along with other organizations, it's so important because we have to bump up those numbers. We need more people to vote, and I've had multiple occasions throughout my job as a community mobilizer where I'm out in the community and I'm talking to younger voters, and it's always so like discouraging. I feel like they almost take like a little jab at me and at what I do when they say like, no, it doesn't matter. Like nothing's gonna change. You know, I don't believe in that stuff. And I know that they're young, but they're completely, I think, allowed to feel that way when we look at the way the system is working right now. I think it's completely fair for especially our young African American individuals and young Latinos to feel like our system does not represent them. I think the harsh truth is that it really doesn't. Not to get too into the left or the right, but one of those parties has more diversity than the other, right? Um, and that's a huge part of it. I've seen it on like a couple teachers and t-shirts and stuff, and it says like you can't be what you can't see. um and I think that holds a lot of truth, right? If you don't ever see someone that looks like you in a power of position, then I don't think you even think that that's a possibility for you. you know um if you never see someone to be involved like in your community that looks like you're not gonna think about getting involved in your community. So it's important for us to have more people that understand our background and that understand our culture and our community, uh, to have them making decisions for us. When I think about Wyandotte and I think about um, Wyandotte, to me is a black and brown community. um, but when you look at who's representing Wyandotte, there's not as much black and brown people there. So how do you govern, I guess, a community in which you can't really relate to? So those are kind of my thoughts on that.
No, and I thank you for those thoughts. I think you've hit really good points, and I think that's why that is the importance of voting, right? We don't see that many people like us in there, but that's why it's important for us to start going into those places and start figuring out how do we start getting involved? How do we get into those roles, seats, etc. And like you said, our turnout, it's there, and we have a lot of power, you guys. We have a lot of power. We have a lot of power to put in people, take out people, whatever. But at the very end, you guys have a lot of power to say who you guys want to represent yourselves, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is cool. I think it's cool that you're out here doing all of these different things, that you're going out there and raising awareness. So with that, let's segue into that. To walk me through it. If I was a first person getting registered, how do I do it? Where do I go? What do I need?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I will walk you through one of my main resources when it comes to voter registration. Since I work in the Wyandotte side, obviously I work with mostly Kansas residents. So I'm going to share my screen with you real quick just to show you some of the resources that I use. So let's see here.
Looks like
Uh,
it's like that moment of like dun 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 dun. We're getting there. We're almost there, right?
yeah, we got it. All right. So for Kansas residents, ksvotes.org to me is the easiest website to get registered. So you literally just go into whatever browser you like to use, whether it's Internet Explorer, Chrome, KS Votes, www.ksvotes.org. This is going to be the first screen that you see. And here it allows you to check your registration. So sometimes I get people that say, "Oh, I might be registered. I'm not sure. Let me see. I'm not sure. I might have gotten registered in high school. I don't remember, blah, blah, blah." So I have them type in their name here, along with their date of birth, zip code, email, and a phone number. Then you'll click on the check my registration page, and then it'll pop up whether you are registered to vote or not. And I can do, just to kind of show you, even though I do not vote on the Kansas side, I am a Missouri resident, but it'll still let me go on to the next page just so you can see it. And thankfully, now there are a lot of options when it comes to uh, where you can go get registered.
Mm-hmm.
This is just one option that I use. So here it says I'm not registered, and I am. Don't worry, just I'm registered on the Missouri side. So I would click register now. And then it's going to take me. These are like the two, how do you say requisitos?
Main questions, main requirements. Está bien.
Requirements.
We're so bilingual on
Sí.
this.
Requisitos, requirements. You gotta be a U.S. citizen and 18 or older. So you'll click on that. And then here's when you start putting in your information. Uh, you put in your address, and I'm gonna take it like all the way until the submit part, just to show you guys what that looks like.
Yeah, and I think that's good. So it can give us an idea of what this process is. So right now I'm thinking and I'm remembering that I'm gonna need my name, my date of birth, my zip code to begin with, and then it'll start asking me about my address. All right,
Yes,
that's pretty easy, right?
yeah, and you'll need a email, which for the population that I work with, which is like older Latinos, that email information can be a little bit trickier. So that's the only reason I'm reminding. But if you're working with like younger people, you're getting them registered. Usually, they are pretty tech savvy. So here we'll go. Boom.
So
Next.
before you go into that one, can you go back real quick?
Yeah.
Sorry. So on this one, what about if we put unaffiliated? Do we need to pick a party? Is it necessary? Are we stuck with that same party all the time, or what? Can you walk me through that?
Yeah. So you just need to pick the party depending for your ballot. So if you register as a Republican, your ballot's gonna look a little bit different than if you register as a Democrat, vice versa. Your options are just a little bit different. But you can go back and change that whenever you want. If last election, you voted a certain party, and then now you want to change that. Same thing. You can do that on this website as well. So nothing's permanent. You don't have to worry about, if you are a Democrat or Republican, you don't have to be either or for life. You can change it whenever you want. So I'm
No, that's good to know because a lot of people I've heard that a lot of people do get really confused on that part because maybe sometimes we don't know what we still want to choose as a party, right? That's
yeah,
good to know that we can change it and we're not completely stuck with it 100%.
absolutely. So after you pick your party, you'll click next, and then For this, you'll need either your ID number or your driver's license number or the last four of your social. After this, it'll be a screen with like all your information. And I can't do this part just because I'm not going to share my.
Personal information, right?
Yeah. But and then it'll have you scroll at the bottom and you'll sign. You'll kind of have to sign. If you're obviously, if you're doing it on your computer, you have to use your mouse to sign, which can be a bit tricky, but it's doable. um, and then that'll be all. And then after that, right under it, it'll ask you if you want to um, apply for a mail-in ballot, and you can also just do that, and it takes less than 2 minutes to put in the information that they ask for that, which is just your address. So you can just click like the option of same information that you use to register, and they send you your ballot. It's pretty easy. um, and then another website that I really enjoy using is this for vote 411. um, I like it because it's in English and in Spanish. So for the population that I work with, it works really well that everything's in Spanish as well. Um, and you can check again, you can register to vote on this website, and you can check your registration status, and you can also find out what's going to be on your ballot.
Oh,
Which
that's a
is
good one.
always a question that I think younger or like first time voters have is how do I find out what's going to be on my ballot, or where do I find, where I'm supposed to go vote. um, for our some of the people that this is their first time voting, I've had to explain to them that there's a specific place that you have to go vote based on your district, like based on where you live. So, during when it gets closer to like election day, you'll start to see a lot of signs when you're driving, like vote here signs. Usually they're at like public places, churches, community centers, that sort of thing. Um, but you do have a polling place like for you, and all you got to do is type in your address to find that. So I'm going to do that.
And this was again in vote411.org. I will write that in that comments. But this is a really cool tool as well. So if you don't know what's on your ballot, you can go to vote411.org. You just need your address, and then it will pull up your ballot. What's on your ballot this year? Those
Exactly.
are really cool tools, Valeria. Thank you for sharing all of this with us.
Yeah. So here I typed in my like work address, and here it tells me like find what's on your ballot. So I'll explore that. There we go. And here is everything that's going to be in. So obviously if I click on this tab, it'll show me like who are my candidates for president. But let's say I go to like the US Kansas Senate. So I'll go to that, and it'll tell me who's going to be on that ballot, who's going to be like on under that list.
Okay.
Um, and then for districts, and then for our judges as well, district attorney, all that stuff is going to be on the ballot. So I can use this website to find out, the names of the people, and then I can kind of go do my own research, because that's another thing too. We want educated voters as well, right? That's a big part of our mission at El Centro. We don't just want to get people registered to vote, but we also want to educate them, and we want them to kind of make up their own decisions and choose kind of what reflects their values. Um, so sometimes, I get people that call me and they're like, "Okay, I got my ballot, but I don't know any of these names. Just tell me, which one do I choose? Who do you vote for?" And I always have to tell them, I can't tell you that. Like, I can't vote for you. And you shouldn't want me to vote for you, right? Because this is going to be like a big important decision, and you should be the one that's making it fully. So it's always good to ask them to do research on those candidates, and it is asking them to be a little bit more invested. um but that's, I don't know, I think that's kind of the nature of the game, right? Like, you have to be a little invested. You have to maybe do some research, a quick Google search to find out, does this person represent my thoughts and my beliefs and my values? We can't just go up there and vote completely one-sided all the way through. Really develop, especially for our young voters, really um find out who do you really align with, who you know has views something similar than you, or who doesn't, and why. Like, explore that idea too. um and one more website that I would actually like to share with you guys is uh the Voter Network.
Okay, yes. And before you show us this, I think that that is definitely good what you just said. The fact that we need to know who's on our ballot, we need to get affiliated, and like that's a really easy too because before that there were used to be so many different links that you had to Google every single candidate. So it's nice to know that now you can go to one single link and figure out everything that's on your ballot, and they have their stance on there too, which is really cool. So I guess the question is, what is that you guys value? What do you guys have stands? What policies are you guys looking into? And that'll be, yeah, that would be really informational for one to know as we go forward because we want to make sure that we're choosing right and that people are really going to be standing for us and that we can hold them accountable.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. And lastly, the Voter Network. I really enjoy this website as well because it has some really cool tools. And the KS votes, you can also go to it from here. And then on their how to vote page, this page is also available in Spanish, which, for the work that I do in Kansas, I think it's really cool that there's like a page dedicated to Kansas voters in Spanish. And the Voter Network does that. And you can, if you're a Kansas resident, boom, you can get registered right here. If you want to vote by mail, boom, you can do it right here. If you want to know what's going to be on your ballot, you can do it right here as well. And then it gives you some dates to remember, which it's a good segue to, let's talk about dates because we do have important ones coming up. Um, we have until the 13th of October, next month, the 13th. That's the voter registration deadline. So our election is going to be November 3rd. But if you are not registered by October 13th, you will not be able to vote. So, that's, if you're not registered, this is the sign. If you're waiting for someone to tell you, go right now. Like, como dice mi mamá, ponte las pilas, let's go. We gotta get registered. Tell your friend, tell your tia, tell your mom, a la vecina, everybody that can vote.
Padre, la comadre.
Madre, exactly. Everybody that can vote, you have to. Um, and like we talked about earlier, I think for the Latino votes, I think I said, it's that vote that we cast it's a little bit heavier, right? Because we're voting with our parents on our backs. We're voting with our community on our back. I cannot stress enough how important it is for DACA, and that's something that I talk to our Latinos in Kansas daily. We're voting for the future of DACA in this election.
We truly are.
And that's something that's going to impact our Latinos, like our youth, tremendously, our younger Latinos, our age, in their 20s. Um, it's a big election, so you have to vote with, that in mind. You have to vote with the way our community is treated in mind. I think about how Latinos are being portrayed under the current administration, and and all of that goes into my mind when I think about voting in November 3rd. So we could say it's a burden, but it's also a blessing that we get to do this, right? That we
Yeah.
get to be, especially if you get to be the first one in your family to do this. That's exciting. That's a new family tradition right there. Is you go and you go vote, and you go vote for the people that are coming up behind you.
Yes, yes, it's a legacy that you're establishing right there. And like you said, some of us can vote, and it is definitely a privilege to have it. And it's so amazing that individuals who do it and enacting it are doing it, because I told you this earlier, Vale, right? I was reading this whole timeline on how long it has been since it has taken us to be able to even have these rights. And
Yeah.
honestly, guys, like every single group that you could, well, might be exaggerating, but every single group that you can think of probably had a limitation on voting. And a lot of it was basis on who can become naturalized and who couldn't. And
Mhm.
there were some laws in our history that are very interesante. Needless, like the nicest way I can put it as well.
Yeah, interesting is the nicest way, right? Yeah, I took a look at that list, and one of the things that stood out to me was, you know, even when Latinos got the right to vote, after the Mexican American War, and they took the land that is now like Arizona, New Mexico, California, I think a part of Colorado, and a part of Texas. Like, so everyone that lived in that land, they got to be citizens, if they wanted to, but citizenship didn't come with voting rights, didn't come with like their land. Their land wasn't theirs anymore, right? And then even when that finally happened, that vote, and I'm skipping a lot of history. I'm going all the way to like 1978. Um, there was still a lot of tactics used against Latinos so that they wouldn't vote. Very similar to the way we see African Americans treated in the 60s when they got their right to vote, where there it was a big intimidation factor of having Klansmen at the polls, intimidating them and scaring them so that they wouldn't vote. And Latinos have their own history, and it's very similar. It's a lot of intimidation and a lot of threatening and a lot of violence, so that we couldn't vote. Uh, and that's another thing to keep in mind. When November 3rd comes around, uh, what what have your ancestors done for you to be able to cast that ballot, to cast that vote? That's another thing that you can kind of be thinking of. But that timeline that you sent over was extremely detailed and just very shocking, I guess, just to really see like all the constant barriers that minorities had to fight for to get the right to vote. It's crazy.
It really is. And right now I'm just showing this because I just want to show you guys like all of this history and time and how long it has taken. Like Vale said, it has been a while. Pero sí es cierto. This is very like the biggest thing that stood out to me was what you said earlier. All the different things that they did to not have people vote. And I
Yeah,
wonder, like, if we think about that now, how much our ancestors have fought for this privilege that we now have.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's overwhelming. And then just even reading through that list, I also saw one in like 1887. Native Americans had to give up their like tribe and their heritage to be able to become citizens. So like the only way that they were allowed to do that is if they completely gave up their like loyalty to their tribe, change their name, change the way that they dressed, change like everything about who they are, really. The way that they lived, the way that they had to like even consume food, everything had to change for them to be able to become citizens in a land that is very much theirs.
Yeah, and that's creo que eso fue the thing that stood out to me the most. All the stuff that we had to give up in order to be able to cast that vote. All the stuff that we had to fight. And I'm saying we, right? But it's our ancestors. Everything that they had to go through in order for us to just walk through the doors like nothing. So it's,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's very interesting. It just took me to a whole different timeline, pathway, looking at all of this, and I was just in awe. Like, estaba como que, oh my God, ¿cómo puede ser that I haven't known this since ever? Like, it's so
Yeah.
much in there and so many things going on. But I'm glad that we're here. I'm glad that we're doing this, and I'm glad that we're sharing resources now.
Yeah, me too.
You were talking about deadlines and dates. We have the October 13th deadline for voter registration, but what are other important dates that we should know about?
So for a mail-in ballot as well, and also like mail-in ballot, absentee ballot. What's the other name that they have for it? Mail-in, absentee.
And mail-in absentee.
There's one more, right?
There
Like
is one
vote
more.
by mail,
Which one is it?
or is it just like voting by mail?
Voting by mail. There is advanced voting.
Advanced voting. Okay,
Advanced
so
voting.
it's I want to just clarify that like it's all the same. All of it is the same. Deadlines are the same. It's put out there in like different names, and I'm not sure if that's to confuse people, to just throw more dates and again confuse people, but it's all the same. And it early voting starts, I believe, in Kansas. I believe it started like last week, and in Missouri too. That you can take your ballot to Union Station, and you can turn in your early ballot there. You have to. Missouri does have. You will have to like request, so you can go on the website, like mo.gov.org, and you can request a like permission for a mail-in ballot. They will mail you a letter saying like, hey, we received your request, please sign, saying that you do want to vote by mail, and then you have to send that, and then they will send you your ballot. So it's you have to two different things that you have to do in order to get it. And people have talked, a lot about why is Missouri like that? Why is there, you have to through two hoops to be able to vote by mail in Missouri? Is it voter suppression? Probably. Uh, Kansas, you just have to request the mail-in ballot, and they mail it straight to you, and then you can go and drop that off already. Or as long as at it has to have like a arriving date of the 3rd. You can send it, or you can drop it off whenever you would like. You can start that now. You can start that process now, though, if you'd like.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. So if you have a mail-in ballot, you can turn it in already if you already obtained it. But if not, once you obtained it, you have up until November 3rd to turn it in, right?
to turn it in person,
Okay.
not to like send it in the mail. You have to
Okay.
send it in the mail so that it arrives on the 3rd at the latest.
All right. So that's a good note. We can send our mail-in ballots the day of in person, but if we want to do it that it can arrive by November 3rd, we have to send it by mail before that. In person, November 3rd, by mail, way before that. Okay, sounds good. I'll remember that. That's okay, so mail-in ballots, and you can request. You said in Missouri you have a couple of steps to get through, but in Kansas, is there any more steps that you have to get through, or is it an easier pathway for them to get a mail-in ballot?
All you got to do is request it. You can go on any of those websites that we talked about. They have that option. Usually, if you're like just not getting registered, right after you finish your registration, it prompts you to the next screen, which is, do you want to get an absentee ballot? And you'll say yes, and boom. The internet has made it very easy. Uh,
Okay.
to do it.
So another question would be like, if I do this mail-in request, is this an always forever thing? Like, I will always get a mail-in request, like ballots, or do I have to do it each time I want a mail-in ballot?
So you can actually, that's actually an option. You can set it up to always get an absentee ballot in the mail, or you can do it through like every time you request, or you can like request for one every time. Um, but yeah, you can set the setting of like always getting it in the mail. And some of the clients that I've registered, especially like elderly clients, they prefer to just always get their ballot mailed to them. So that's like a little box that you can check off on, and you will always get a mail-in ballot.
All right. And okay, so now talk. So we have how to request it, um, and ways that you can do it permanently and ways that you can do it temporarily, right? Now,
Correct.
there's a whole lot of video going on right now saying that the post office is going to go one way or is going to go another way, is going to get this policy in place, all these different things, right? So there's kind of una falta de confianza en estos sistemas or a lack of trust in these systems. Is there a tool or is there something that we can use to track our mail-in ballots if we decide to do a mail-in?
Yeah. So, and I'm sorry, I'm just double checking on that deadline for the mail in ballot because I knew that there was a specific date, but I couldn't remember it. The last day that you have in Kansas to send your ballot back is Tuesday, October 27th.
Okay. So last day to turn in your mail-in ballot.
Tuesday, October 27th.
Okay. October 27th.
Yes.
And is there, so again, my question was, is there a way to track the ballot once you send it off to make sure that it has gotten there, to make sure that it's going to be counted? Again, there is there is a lack of trust to a certain extent. So are there tools to assure us that our votes are counting?
That is a great question. And yes, there is. You do have the option. So every state is going to have a like a voting. I'm trying to think of the name for it. Let me see. I have it. Let me see real quick. So every state has like a Secretary of State, and they are in charge of like voting. On the Missouri side, they're like in charge. So when you're asking for permission for a ballot in the mail, it goes to their office, and they're the ones that have to.
Oh, I think we lost her a little bit. So we're going to give her. So we're going to give her a couple minutes to see if she's going to join us back. But again, you guys remember that there are different voting resources that are out there that you guys can make sure that you guys can send in. Right now, we're talking about mail-in ballots and how those work. You could go ahead and ask for it already, and some of you guys already do have it, so you guys can go turn it in early. But if not, you guys can still request it, and you guys have until October 27th to send it off to. As well, if you do send it in person, then you guys can go right in by yourself. So again, you guys, this has been a really good segment. I'm trying to figure out different voting resources. And remember that for voter registration, there was KS Votes and the state register. You guys can do your voter registration online or through an in-person application, or you guys can go to different locations like El Centro, or air or different individuals that help you register. There's a lot of info tables as well. Adding on, remember that there's different polling sites depending on where you register at, and that you can go in and check your ballot. There's all these different links, and we went ahead and dropped them in the comments. So once more, everybody, thank you so much for coming. There was a lot of information shared to us with Valeria, and we will continue on. She just came back.
Hey, so sorry. I don't know what happened with my computer. It just went blank on me. Um, but we were talking about tracking your mail-in ballot, correct?
Yes.
So yeah, so Secretary of State website. If you go to their website, that's where, like for the Missouri side, you can. That's where you will go to go get registered. Um, it on the left side, it always has the like track my ballot option, and you can go on that and type in your information, and it'll let you know like where your ballot is. Um, and then there's also a couple other resources. There's like ballot tracks, which is spelled like ballot T and then TRAX. And that's another resource that you can use to track your ballot to make sure it's getting to its rightful place. So yeah, those are some of the resources that you can use. If you can always go to like your state's website, and most of these resources live on that website as well, on the Kansas and Missouri side.
Okay. And yes, we did a quick recap as we were waiting for you, and definitely did mention that there's different websites from the states that one can check out. And it is good to know that we can also track that ballot. So that is one way of making sure that our votes are being counted. And if you do have some, you want to make sure that things are going well, that is a way that there is a tool that will let you know exactly where your ballot is at. So, is there any other resources, Vale, that you can think of that you would want to share with us tonight? I know we already talked a lot about mail-in ballots, registration, polling sites. We talked about some dates. Is there anything? Oh, and we also talked about what is on our ballot. Is there anything else that you can think of or would like to even do a recap of? Oh, Vale, you're in mute. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. One last website that I do use from time to time is Ballotpedia. Um, and that's also very similar to just kind of showing you what's going to be on your ballot, and it also has a good um, part where it can like show you the history of the candidate a little bit more in depth into like how they vote and like what side they lean on, that all that information. So that is another resource that you can use. But as far as just to kind of wrap it all up, um, I encourage everyone to go vote. You know, no matter what side you lean on, it's important that you use your voice. That you go and you vote for any Latinos. Like I said, our vote. It's not just for us. It's a lot of it is for our community and our parents or grandparents or ancestors that fought for us to have this right. So yeah, it's a big year and there's a lot kind of on the line. So yeah, make sure you get registered and register a friend. Always bring someone with you when it comes to these sort of things. Bring them to the polls with you, register them with you. Yeah, that's all I have. And thank you so much, Dee, for kind of giving myself and Central this platform to talk and to educate people about the importance of voting.
No, definitely. Thank you, Vale, for coming and sharing all this information because it's very crucial. And like you said, this year it's very important for us to show up to those polls, to get it registered and vote. And like you said, Vale, there's a whole legacy that we're bringing behind us or starting off if we're our first voters. So definitivamente, gente out there, Latinos, go out and vote. We are a powerhouse. We can define a lot of different things and a lot of elections this year. So please, 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 regístrense y hay diferentes recursos. So remember that. a census out there to help you. Valeria's out here to help you, and I'm pretty sure that she would be more than welcome for you to reach out to her. Is there a way that we can connect with you?
Yeah. So our number at El Centro is 913-677-0100. You can call and ask for Valeria, or you can also reach out to me like by email, which is v espadas at El Centro Inc. Um, yeah.
Thank you, Vale. And before we go, I know there's another huge topic that we want to give just a quick shout out and overview of El Censo. Talk to us about the census real quick.
Yes. Yeah. A quick talk on the census. So I it was that we were gonna have until the 30th of this month to fill out the census. That was the deadline. I believe a court has fought for it to get pushed to its original date, which was October 31st. But then I saw that they're waiting on an appeal for that. So I feel like the census deadline is kind of in limbo right now. I'm not completely sure if I'm being 100% honest as to where it is. But let's just say it is on the 30th, and that means we have like just a couple of days to fill it out, right? And the census is tied to so much like funding, so much public funding. So anything that's public is funded by the census. So just to throw a couple things out there, schools funded by the census, health clinics funded by the census, our public libraries funded by the census, police department, fire department, any sort of local public resource, it's most likely tied to the census. Any sort of FAFSA grants for our students, those are tied to the census. So, and the census numbers are used for the next 10 years. So we only do the census every 10 years. And the two big points of it is funding, and the second one is representation. So just to break down the representation idea, if if more people are counted enough to where they do, like the numbers show that there's enough there for there to be like another representative, whether it's in the Congress or it's in the Senate, that can create another seat, which then can go, Delia Garcia. That's a name that when I think about the census always comes up in my mind. How she, went out there and fought for her community to get counted, and she did such a good job that they did receive another seat, and then she ran for that seat, and then she won. And that was great representation for the Latino community. So that's kind of what's at stake here too. It's not just funding, but it's also representation, and it's an accurate count, um, so that people know that we're here, and especially lower income communities. The census is very important for those lower income communities because so much funding for public uh, resources, like WIC or the SNAP, food stamps, or even like the CHIP program. The schools this year at Kansas did the PEBT, which was like for lunches. So during the early COVID, so that kids that only ate food at school, they were still getting those meals covered. And it was through this program that the schools put out that was funded by the census numbers. So it's very tied to funding for our communities. So please, 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 please fill out your census. It's going to ask you just about your household. So how many people live there, their name, their date of birth, and their country of origin. That's what it's going to ask you. The census information is 100% protected under federal law. Information cannot be leaked. It never has. Not even the president is allowed to ask for the census information. And it's super, super important. And if you just go to like mycensus2020.gov and you click the respond button, boom, you can fill it out right there. It takes, I would say, 10 minutes at most, but it has a huge impact. So please fill out your census.
Thank you, Vale. Oh my God, you fit a lot of information in that quick
Yeah,
time.
that was a lot. Trying to
but
wrap
thank
it up.
but thank you so much for sharing all that. Because you're right. I love the fact that you shared Delia's story on how empowering and important that is. The fact that a whole new district came about, and then now there was a Latina representing, fighting for us, fighting for her community. That is amazingly. That goes to show how much power it is for us to be counted. Que estemos ahí representando. Exactamente. So again, remember you guys, mycensus2020.gov, and como Vale dijo, cuenta para muchas cosas. It really is important for a lot of different things. I didn't even know about the FAFSA funding. That is news to me. So, wow,
Yeah,
there's so much that the census covers.
yeah. If it's federal funded, it comes from from the census, so it's important. That's why we all gotta make sure we're counted, especially our community. Or when I say our community, I'm talking our Latinos. We have to show them we're here, and it's time for our community to be counted accurately.
Yeah, yep, because that's how we fund a lot of the things, the education, everything. Like you said, police departments, library, all those resources that we need for our next generations to come and upcoming. Those are the things that we need. Thank you so much, Valeria. Otra vez, thank you, thank you. This has been very informational, very heavy on different resources. But that's the thing, you guys. There's so many resources out here that it is very much doable, that it is very much many ways for us to keep holding accountability in different matters, whether it's in through our systems, our individuals that are candidates, etc. There's many, many ways that we can hold accountability at this moment. So otra vez, Valeria, muchas gracias por estar aquí, for sharing this information. And remember, guys, if you guys have any questions, please reach out to Vale. Please reach out to El Centro. They have this information. They have these links. And hopefully soon we see more people talking about voting and the census. We need to get counted. Estamos aquí.
There you go. Thank you, D.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Vale. Well, have a great one, everybody. We hope that this was very informational for you guys as well. And please go back and get all these different resources that Valeria talked about. And as well, there's a lot of different comments. So thank you guys. Have a good night. Adios.